In this video, I'm going to describe my drug policy. Since I advocate for the legal regulation of drugs, I'm going to be accused of degeneracy by the alt-right and by my new friends at the Daily Stormer. Before I go over the details of legal regulation, I'd like to go over a part of my policy I think everyone from the legalize it crowd to the most hardcore hater of degeneracy can agree on. Drug addiction in Ontario and in a lot of the West is treated as a disability. That means just for being addicts, people can sign up for a steady stream of disability support cash and a free government apartment to carry out their degeneracy in. A typical drug user enters the system by ending up in jail or a homeless shelter. The drug addict is then set up with money and housing, all at the taxpayer's expense. Now let me introduce the taxpayer. I'll call him the plumber from Penetanguishene, or the plumber from Penetang for short. So right now, the plumber from Penetang is paying the drug addict $800 a month disability cash and paying $750 a month for a room in a government housing and paying for the addict's government workers. How does a drug addict repay this plumber from Penetang? Well, his $800 cash comes at month ends and he turns the whole $800 into hard drugs, enriching the criminal gangs in the plumber's town. Now the plumber from Penetang is on the hook for the whole cost, as the now penniless drug addict goes to free meals, food banks, clothing banks, and generally spends the month whining to government workers for their needs or anything they can sell for drugs. How does a drug addict repay the plumber from Penetang? Well, the drug addict needs drugs, and there are two ways to turn government apartments into drugs. The first is to let other addicts use your apartment to do drugs in for a share of the drugs, or the second is to let a drug dealer deal out of his apartment for a cut of the drugs. In a final irony, the plumber from Penetang pays for the government apartment. His daughter gets her first hit of free crack in. Crack the plumber from Penetang pays for. This is god-tier levels of degeneracy. Getting the plumber from Penetang to pay for the crack that turns his beautiful daughter into a crack-addicted prostitute, breaking his heart and causing him to die young from alcoholism. I work in this industry. This is all that happens. The system creates more addicts than it fixes. When you hear of the fentanyl death epidemic, remember, you are paying with your taxes for every killer hit. Treating drug addiction as a disability instead of the degeneracy it is was one of the biggest mistakes of social policy of our times. Under a true justice government, disability recipients will be drug tested and face greatly reduced benefits and loss of housing if they fail the test. While we are on the topic of drug addicts and degeneracy, I want to address the issue of homeless shelters in urban cores. Homeless shelters are populated mainly by drug addicts and the mentally ill, who are mainly drug addicts. If you are a normal person who is down on their luck and lost their job or become sick and lost their apartment, staying at a homeless shelter will destroy your life. The stress of sleeping in a group setting with mentally ill drug addicts will lead you to do something stupid like get drunk with some of them. Once you are drunk, some predator addict will offer their share of drugs with you to hook you and drain you of any cash you might have left. You go from a down-and-out person to a doomed drug addict courtesy of a government homeless shelter. In short, a homeless shelter is a place for mentally ill drug-addicted predators. They get kicked out every morning and spend their day looking for marks to beg off of, victims to rip off, or suckers to hook on drugs and drain for cash. All day is a quest for $20 to get that 20-piece. Under true justice, homeless shelters will be located outside the city. Buses will leave regularly from staging areas in the urban core to the rural shelters, and drug addicts will not wander our streets all day. The rural homeless shelter can be nice. I don't mean to punish or save money. Everyone can have their own shipping crate in a resort with a pool for all I care. Just get them out of the urban core. The guy down and out in his luck, the one who just lost his job, will do fine in this rural setting, sleeping on his own with his own bathroom and government services nearby, trying to help him get back on his feet and get back to work. The addicts will use it during bad weather or when they've had enough of the streets to rest and fatten up for a day or two. If they are sick of being addicts, they can take the walk to the government services at any time. Now for my proposal for the legal regulation of drugs. And by legal regulation, drugs, I literally mean adults are going to be able to go to the government store and buy cocaine, opium, or psychedelics. I have three solid reasons for supporting legal regulation of drugs. The first and most important reason, I think, is by keeping drugs illegal, you allow them to be used as a weapon by people who have access to them. This is complicated, but let me explain the concept of drugs being used as a weapon by describing to you how as a girl is forced into prostitution, or being turned out. First, a vulnerable woman is given her first hit of crack for free, by someone acting as a friend. Free crack continues and the pimp becomes her boyfriend, and then they are eventually having sex. He introduces a friend into the mix and tells some sorry story about needing money and gets the girl to have sex with his friend for money. She gets to smoke crack with some of the money she gets. More friends, more sex, more money, more crack, until the girl is ready to hit the streets. The girl does a $20 sex act and goes to her pimp for $20 worth of crack. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The pimp may fail to hold the girl and have a stronger pimp take her away through threats and violence, but it's clear the girl is now property. A pimp invests a lot of time, money, and effort into turning a prostitute. If we lived in a world where drugs were legal, this prostitute now has the option of buying government cocaine. While government cocaine may be more expensive, it comes without violence, threats, and intimidation. With government cocaine, the prostitute will eventually leave the pimp. The middle-aged female clerk at the government cocaine store doesn't slap her if she doesn't produce. Hopefully the offers on the signs on the walls offering rehab will be taken up by the prostitute. If a pimp is no longer able to hold his prostitute because of government cocaine, then the investment in cocaine, time, and effort made turning her out wasn't worth it, so it never happens in the first place. This is how drugs are used as a weapon by people who have access to them. This is the first reason why drugs should be legal. The second reason there should be legal regulation of drugs is to give the government the drug revenue that now enriches criminal gangs. Production of drugs worldwide ruins entire countries. If you control the supply chain and buy your drugs from companies, not cartels, you can reduce the violence that occurs in drug-producing countries. Companies that produce heroin and cocaine will have to adhere to strict environmental and ethical standards. In our own neighborhoods, a heroin addict spends on average $200 a day on his habit. With legal regulation, you are generating $180 a day profit from this addict. This is 3 hours of a policeman's time paid for. You can have a policeman check up on this addict every day if you want to. Money going to the government means less money going to the drug gangs. Drug gangs run neighborhoods and ruin buildings with their activities. Gang culture is celebrated in our society. Gang culture feeds off drug money. If you can go up to a government employee and buy cocaine, how cool does that make a Crip? If you're going to rap about dealing weight when middle-aged white women work the cocaine store, how cool does that make you look? The third and final reason to do legal regulation of drugs is to get our freedom back. The war on drugs was another reason to create a surveillance state, another reason to spy on us. There you have it. Send me your accusations of degeneracy. I genuinely believe a world with legal regulation of drugs will be safer and fairer. The hardest part would be finding the right price. As far as the safety of the children argument, teenagers can get all the drugs they want now, and I think taking the cool, the gangsta out of the drugs will reduce teenage drug use. Please tell me what you think. Chatelet brothers and sisters.